Should the Canadiens trade Price and Weber and rebuild? And can they put Jonathan Drouin back on the wing already? This is Hockey Inside Out. Welcome to the first episode of 2018. This is our Back from the Holidays edition. I'm Adam Susser. Joining me today is our familiar cast of characters, Stu Cowan, Chris Nilan, and CBC Daybreak's Jessica Rusnak. Here's what we're going to be talking about on today's show. Number 1, should Marc Bergevin throw in the towel on this season? Number 2, if the Canadiens decide to reset, as Bergevin calls it, is he the right person for that job? Number 3, should the Habs rebuild with Carey Price and Shea Weber and take a different direction? Number 4, why has there been absolutely zero chemistry between Jonathan Drouin and Max Pacioretty? And number 5, should the Canadiens move Jonathan Drouin to a wing and install Andrew Shaw in the middle? Let's start the show. As my esteemed colleague, Mr. Stu Cowan, wrote in the Montreal Gazette on Tuesday, as it currently stands, the Montreal Canadiens have a 2.6% chance of making the playoffs this season, or, as he figured out, need to post a 26-11-3 record from this day on. Yeah. He calculated that on his own, and he failed grade 10 math. In other words, doesn't take a genius to figure out the Canadiens are screwed. The Habs have very little chance of making the playoffs this year. On Sunday, General Manager Marc Bergevin said that he hasn't thrown in the towel on the season just yet. But should he? What do you think?
We'll know by the end of this next week once they come back to play. They play the Bruins 3 times in 8 days. They need to win at least 4 out of their 5 games in 8 days. They need to win at least 4 to have any hope, and even then it would be slim. So after this week, I think they could throw it in now, but I think they're going to wait until after the week.
I think they should throw it in right away. Right now, the reality of them making the playoffs, like he says, basically impossible for that to happen. And this is my whole thing. Even if they do get into the playoffs somehow, I can't see them going far. So they're not going to set themselves up to be in a good position for next year. So let's just write off this season and start planning for the future.
Yeah, throw it in. What does throw it in consist of? Does it consist of cleaning house right now, realizing that you're going to trade some pieces to get some draft picks? That's all going to depend on where this owner stands with this general manager. So throwing in the towel, does that mean Antti Niemi plays all the games? We're going to see. And again, it all depends what's going to happen here with Marc Bergevin. Is he going to be the general manager moving into the next season? Does this owner have the confidence in him that he can do the job moving forward? Does he have the confidence in him that he can move players that, could have an impact here, and he ends up moving them out for pieces maybe that just won't work out here? Because I'm going to tell you right now, it takes a special player to play in this environment. And sometimes you're better off with what you have sometimes and what you think you're getting.
Well, it does take a special player to play in this environment, excuse me, which surprised me how Bergevin has let so many players who love playing in this environment leave. You go back to Piqué, you go back to Radulov, you go back to Markov, guys who love playing in Montreal, and he let them go. And I mean, Shea Weber came here. I mean, Shea Weber's played well since he's been here. He's a solid defenseman, but I don't think Shea Weber ever wanted to come to Montreal. No, it wasn't in his plans to leave Nashville. I'm sure it wasn't in his wife's plans to leave Nashville. Also, they had a life set up there. We talk about throwing in the towel. Bergevin's not going to throw in the towel because then the players are going to throw in the towel. He's fighting for his job. And we talk about playoffs. 1 round of playoffs is still money in Jeff Molson's pocket, whether it's 2 home games or 3 home games or whatever it is. And so I don't think they'll throw in the towel in the playoffs until it's almost mathematically impossible.
But I think it's also they're not going to tell the public that they're throwing in the towel either. Yeah.
I'd like to hear that announcement. Marc Bergevin on Sunday talked about having to do a reset, which is a fancy way of saying a rebuild. Do you think he's the right person for that job?
What do you think, Knuckles?
Well, listen, his track record right now, you would say no. Some of the pieces he moved out of here, certainly in the short term here, look like mistakes. He's made some mistakes that a young general manager makes, and could he do the job moving forward? I think he could. I don't know if he'll get that opportunity. Maybe, and I always say this is $8 million on the cap, and I'm not saying. I'm not making excuses for him, but maybe there's something there in this whole Tavares thing. I don't know. Now, what if the owner of this team knows that there's going to be a deal made for this player, or they're going to get this player come the offseason? Does he stick with this general manager? I happen to think they might have something up their sleeve that we just don't know about. But certainly his track record, he's made some good moves and he's made some bad moves. And he certainly doesn't have the confidence of the people, the media, and we don't know right now about the owner. So far he does, but until the owner speaks or comes out and I guess backs him or lets him go, we won't know.
Well, you mentioned Tavares, but you got to wonder why Tavares would want to come to Montreal with the situation this team is in, the taxes here, all the other reasons you hear players why they don't want to come here. But you know, every GM has a 5-year plan. He's had his 5 years. It's been a disaster. They're in 27th or 28th place now. That's where they were when he took over. So they're right back to where they were. And you could make an argument that they're in more of a mess now than they were when he took over from Gauthier. So I think he's had his chance, and it's time to try somebody else.
Well, when he first came on, he made some really good moves. Remember when he traded Eric Cole just as his performance started to drop right before it, and he got Michael Ryder, and he played really well, and that really impressed people. But then now, in the last few years, he's been making moves that are very questionable, and it doesn't seem like he's really thinking them through. The fact that he had no plan B for Radulov and Markov walking away from the team is a huge factor that you should always, have an idea that another outcome could be possible, and how will you implement it there. And he just also can't keep blaming it on the players for saying, I made them offers and they walked away. Well, then you should have had someone in place to fill their void.
Or you should have known they weren't going to take the offer.
And it comes down to managing people, and I think if there's one area he might have failed with some players, was managing those people. The Bolliers, the Tenoris, Markov and Radulov and PK. I put PK in there, but I'll still say it. PK got himself traded.
Well, as Markov, he said, Bergevin said the negotiations with Markov would have probably been better if he was dealing with an agent instead of him. But then you wonder, there's ways around that. Maybe take somebody besides Marc Bergevin to talk with Andrei Markov during the contract negotiations. There's different ways to negotiate with different people, and he knew he was negotiating with him, and he should have had a plan to do it. He should have known he was a man of few words. He should have known that he was a proud man, and it just backfired. I mean, I remember Marc Bergevin saying, I've made them both final offers, first come, first served. I'm sure Andrei Markov said, oh yeah, I'm out of here.
Yeah. Do you think they should rebuild with Price and Weber, or trade them off and just start from scratch?
This is a tough one, because I would not be against trading Carey Price, because he's the only real asset that you have to get something good back and put the pieces in place that you need to build off of. And it's tough when all your money is in your goaltender. But the reality is you do need a good goaltender, and Carey Price is the best in the world. Now with Shea Weber, he has the foot injury now. He's that much older that I think it's going to be more difficult to rebuild focusing around Shea Weber, because I don't know, how many more years can he really have on with this team.
Well, if he's going to trade Price, sooner the better, because that contract's going to be harder to trade as he gets older. And
I think
Price
he has a no move.
Well, he does, but that doesn't mean you can't trade him. That means you can only trade him where he wants to go.
Yeah.
So that limits what you're going to maybe get for him. Doesn't mean it's impossible
he
to trade him.
He has a no move before July 1st, right?
If this team is as bad as it looks like it's going to be, would Carey Price really want to stay here? Would he want to go somewhere and win a cup? And with Carey Price, as well as he's played here, the Canadiens have won nothing with him, and that's not because of him. That's because this team can't score. They haven't been able to score forever. I mean, Marc Bergevin took over 6 seasons ago. They needed a #1 center. They still need a #1 center. Ray Ferraro was on TSN the other day. He said, what, is he going to fall out of the sky? Like, what's his plan now to get a #1 center? And that would be my first thing if I'm Jeff Molson. What's your plan to get a #1 center? If he doesn't have one,
and remember, he always said the way to get #1 center is trading Carey Price, and he said he's not going to do that.
Yeah, well, it's hard. It's hard to make trades. Yeah, well, that's why you get paid a lot of money for that job.
Yeah.
So speaking of #1 centers or #1 centers, why do you think there's been zero chemistry between Jonathan Drouin and Max Pacioretty?
Because there's no chemistry. They just don't fit well together. It seems like, when you got a guy who's trying to learn the position of center, and you have another guy that wants to get the puck in areas that, he has an opportunity to score, you also need somebody to go in and get the puck for those guys. You need somebody to separate the defenseman from the puck so Drouin can go in and get it and find Pacioretty. It hasn't worked with them. I don't know. I mean, they were lovey-dovey all summer. It seemed like everything was great, and now you stop playing together, and that's the proof is in the pudding. And they just certainly, does it have something to do with Max? Because Max is kind of down on himself because he hasn't scored, and who knows? Mentally, I think at times Max he gets so down on himself that he's a detriment to whoever he plays with.
I'm curious, who's the player you had the best chemistry with?
Carbonell.
Carbonell?
And Bob.
Why?
Yeah.
What made that work?
Well, we had a defined role, our line, and Cabo could play. He could play both ends of the rink. He could move the puck, pass the puck well. He was a guy who had good hockey sense.
I think the guys shot themselves in the foot, like, as Chris was saying, all the lovey-doveyness that was going on over the summertime about how they were trained together, how they would love to play with each other. So they put all these expectations out there. I think if there wasn't so much talk about how great they were together, then maybe people wouldn't necessarily have put so much pressure for them to find the chemistry that clearly was not there.
I think you're right, though, too, Chris. I think Max is so hard on himself, and it shows that sometimes in his body language. When he was going through that slump, he'd shoot, and the shoulders would drop if it didn't go in. And even when he finally scored the goal, in the slump, he had like no reaction to it. It was almost like he was.
Well, he scores the empty net goal the other night, and he didn't look all that enthused. And thank God, if he ever looked happy, people would have ripped him.
Well,
he got ripped for scoring an empty net.
Yeah.
Everybody's saying that's all he does is score empty net goals. It's his first one of the year, and he got a hell of a lot more goals with the goalie in than with the goalie out.
Well, I wrote a column recently. If they trade Max Pacioretty, they're going to miss him because who's going to score on this team? And wherever he goes, if he plays with a #1 center, he's going to score 35 or 40 goals. So it's easy to dump on Max Pacioretty, and you go back to the playoffs last year when he didn't score. He was a one-man show offensively. If you Alain Vigneault shut down Max Pacioretty and they won. That's all he had to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, you see it when you see him in interviews or read his quotes. It's just like he needs to, stop putting so much pressure on himself. Be maybe a better friend to yourself.
Easier said than done.
Well, if he goes somewhere else, if he goes somewhere else and he's not a captain and he's not in a huge hockey market, he will thrive in that environment. I think I admire Max for how much pride he has for wearing the C, how much he wants to do it, how much he takes it to heart. He cares. He really does care. People say he doesn't. He cares.
Oh yeah.
But I think it's just too much on him.
He gives it his all, but he's like Gallagher would be a better captain because I feel like he just goes and he'll just do.
That would be my pick. He leads by example.
Do you think they should install Andrew Shaw back at center? Maybe that would help the whole Drouin-Pacioretty situation.
Well, I don't necessarily know if Andrew Shaw will be that much better at center than Jonathan Drouin, but in a way, maybe it might just help Drouin's confidence, that he'll be back to a position that he's more familiar with, that he's had a lot of success with, and then he can get a few goals, get some more points, really feel good about himself. But let's not now go down the same road that they did with Alex Galchenyuk, that he's moving from the wing to the center, to the wing to the center. Make a decision where you want to put him. And I think with Marc Bergevin's press conference saying in an ideal world, if they had someone else to play center, that he would not be there, was maybe not the best message to send to Jonathan Drouin when he hasn't really performed to what maybe they wanted people to expect of him. But in the reality is, when they traded for him, he was not a center. So this is the growing pains you have to live with.
Well, at the golf tournament, Marc Bergevin said, I've seen enough of Alex Galchenyuk at center to know he can't play center. How much more does he have to see of Jonathan Drouin at center before he realizes he can't play center? I think Andrew Shaw between Galchenyuk and Drouin might work. I mean, the thing with Andrew Shaw, he's going to work his butt off. You know that. He's going to dig, he's going to get pucks, and might give those guys some freedom to skate around and do their thing. Or try Alex Galchenyuk at center again. I mean, what do you have to lose at this point? Put him there for a couple of games. If it doesn't work, take him away. But it's almost like Bergevin's pride has got into this, that I said he can't play center, he's never going to play center.
I feel the same way about the Galchenyuk thing. I think he made a statement about him. He's not a center. You don't need to see him anymore there. But I think there's a point here where you have to put him back there regardless. Listen, I'm one of those guys that I like guys that can play both ends of the rink. Not that I don't like Alex, but so far, how many years in the league now? 6, 7 years in the league? And he doesn't know how to play in his own end. That bothers me. That the kid couldn't learn in that number of years how to play in your own end. And Drouin is not much better.
No.
So, yeah, would you put Andrew Shaw in there and let these guys just not win? They can't even, honestly, Galchenyuk in his own end, as a winger, doesn't have a clue. Never mind as a centerman. As a winger, he can't even get the puck out of the zone. He's weak on the boards. So, put him back at center because he's going to be on the ice. No matter when he's going to be on the ice, there's a possibility of getting a goal scored against, and there's also a possibility of him maybe getting a goal.
But you got Carey Price back there too to cover up some of the mistakes. I just with Galchenyuk, they can't score. He's a good offensive player. Just trying.
See how that worked out at the beginning of the year.
Well, that's it.
For all the mistakes.
That's right. But he was the thing with Galchenyuk when he was a couple of years ago before he had the knee injury. He was in the top 10 in NHL scoring, playing center. He was producing. It's funny. Bergevin always talks about confidence and how you can play with an ankle injury or a foot injury or this, but you can't play without confidence. But he has a way of just killing his players' confidence. I mean, his comment the other day about Drouin, how he can't play center. It's going to kill his confidence. What they've done to Alex Galchenyuk, they've killed his. You go back and back and back, and the one guy he couldn't kill his confidence was PK because he had so much confidence. There was nothing he could never kill it. But the way they handle the young players here, this is a young man's league now, the NHL, and the Canadiens just need to change their. Like Victor Mete coming back now, play the kid. Play him 15, 20 minutes a game and let him play.
Yeah, no sense in bringing him back.
No, especially now if the season's already over.
Sit him out. You're going to be the first guy to sit out.
Yeah.
No. Is he going to be the guy that, he gets like 7, 8 minutes a game? That can't happen. You can't mess with it. If he's going to come back, he's got to play.
Well, if they're out of the playoffs in another 10 games, let's say, or 5 games, it's almost like a free training camp or a preseason to play them. Just play them. Play the kids.
Go ahead, boys. Yeah. Go play. Go play pond hockey. Go play pond hockey, boys.
The way you're describing Marc Bergevin, it's like a bitter man stuck in a bad relationship. I think it's just time to let him go. Let him go, Jeff. Maybe it's time to let him go. Okay, that's our show for this week. We want to thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back, like always, next Thursday. I'm Adam Susser. Thanks for watching.